This journey, I think, actually, well, it began in my childhood, me being a forest therapy guide, but in 2016, no, 2017, my family, my husband and my two boys, were in Japan, and it was blazing hot, and it was in July. And we decided to go out for a walk in a shady area, and we came across this lovely creek in this forest in the middle of Tokyo. And we found along the paths these little signs. Things like, what does the water feel like? What do the leaves feel like? What's the water sound like? Where would something go if you dropped it in the water? It was just like sprinkled along. And I was like, kind of interesting, kind of a fun way. As a mom, I'm like, let's try some of these things. And I realized that as a kid, those were things my mom did with us. So your left picture is my mom and my little sister and I picking blueberries up in the Sierras, and the lower one is my oldest son and my mom. We dragged a wheelchair out into the woods, and they picked blueberries. So I was raised in the mountains. I was raised in Berkeley. 3 months out of the year, as Isabel had mentioned, we were in the mountains for the whole entire summer, every year until I left my parents' house. And it was great because my mom would do exactly what she's doing in that picture. She would get down. She wasn't very tall, so I think it was kind of easier for her. She would get down and play with us in the dirt and have us look for bugs. And when you pull a piece of bark off of a down tree, there are all kinds of bugs, and you can watch the little grooves that they make in the wood. And my mom was so into this that's what we did all summer. We had a radio, and that was it. So it was just playing in the woods all the time. So in 2020, my mother-in-law sent me a book, and it was about forest bathing. And I'm like, what the heck is forest bathing? I'd never heard of this. And I'm reading it, and I'm like, oh, you go out in the woods and you take the time to look at things? Oh my gosh, that's like what my mom used to do with us. Oh, you go out into the woods and you take time to listen for things? Oh my gosh, that was how our mom told us how to orient ourselves. We were little, and she would just let us go out into the woods, and she told us, okay, kids, there were 8 of us. You guys, if you ever get lost, I want you to stop where you are and close your eyes and listen. And you will listen and you will find something familiar. And the familiar thing is probably going to be the highway. So if you walk out to the highway, take your direction, whichever you think the way the cabin is, and keep going. And there was this triangle of woods. It was huge. I mean, a lot of acreage of woods. But she knew that eventually we'd be able to figure out how to get our way back home if we just listened. And then she said, and I'll give you a tip. If you just observe where the sun is, like remember which way it comes up. Remember, it comes up over on the other side of the valley. So if it's after lunch, walk away from the sun and you go back to the cabin. Or she'd say things like, okay, listen for the wind. Where's the wind come from, kids? Well, it comes up from the valley. So if you can hear where the wind's coming from, that's the direction of the cabin. So she just did all these things with us. And we just loved being out in the woods, smelling trees, smelling dirt, making things out of the trees. And so when I heard about forest bathing, I thought, oh, I totally want to do this. Now, forest bathing came about because in Japan in the 80s, they saw a skyrocketing incident of autoimmune disorders and cancers and very unhappy people. And the government was trying to figure out how can we help people live a more healthy life. And the forestry people are like, hey, we have an idea. Why don't we do some studies and see what happens when we put people back out in nature? Because, this has only been going on for the last 10 years when industry and people living tighter community in bigger cities has started, and maybe people just need to be back in nature. So they do a lot of studies on things that you can measure, like blood pressure and blood sugar levels. And they noticed and took data on that people's cortisol levels go down, people's stress and blood sugar and blood pressure go down when they're out in the woods and away from nature. And these were things that are more scientifically studied. So things like improved attention and mood, that's asking somebody, how do you feel? But when you actually measure somebody's cortisol levels, blood sugar levels, that actually showed improvements in health. And so what the Japanese government did was they did things like what we found in Tokyo, where they encourage people to go outside, but they also leave little notes for them on what to do. And the key things are, what they found was that when you're in the forest, the trees are in community with each other. And the trees produce phytochemicals. And what the phytochemicals do is it helps the trees not have fungus growing on them and the bad bacteria, it kills that. And maybe this tree throws some out and the tree next to it is able to take advantage of that. And so there's this whole ecosystem that's out in the forest that the trees take advantage of. And what the scientists have found is that when we inhale these phytoncides, it actually triggers our immune system. So then we're better able to fight off bacterial infections, fungal infections, that type of thing. So that's where forest bathing comes from. So we're bathing literally in the goodness of the forest and taking advantage of that. And that is what Shinrin-Yoku in Japanese translates over to forest bathing in English. And when I told my 70-something-year-old sister, hey, you need to Google what I do. I'm doing forest bathing. She unfortunately misunderstood forest bathing for forest naked. And I got a phone call after that. Madeleine, what are you doing? So, yeah. So it's really bathing out in the goodness of nature. And the key things that they found was that if you're deliberate with your focus on a particular sense, that helps you be in the moment, entirely bathed in the moment, in addition to inhaling the phytoncides, which are good for you. And I'm looking at the vegetables over there. So the vegetables also have phytoncides in them. And when we eat them, they help our gut bacteria. So we have the gut-brain connection, we have the lung-brain connection, and it involves us interacting with plants, whether we're eating them or inhaling what they throw off, which is kind of cool. So in the I'm trying to think of when he started, this would have been in the late 90s, a gentleman named Amos Clifford heard about forest bathing and thought, a lot of the medical establishments in the US, Kaiser, I know, Sutter Health, offer mindfulness classes. And he approached Kaiser and said, I think we should offer forest bathing in addition, because it's mindfulness plus this additional, bathing ourselves in things that are really good for our bodies. And they said, well, it just can't be you. And he said, well, what do I need to do? He says, well, if you get people trained, sure, then we'll think about it. So what he did was I'm trying to think of when it was. It was up in Sugarloaf National Park in Sonoma County. he gathered the first group of guides, and it was about 15 years ago. And they spent 10 days camping out and practicing what they were going to do as forest bathing. And so what forest bathing is, the way that somebody who is certified to be a nature and forest therapy guide, is we learn how to help people bring themselves into the present with a series of invitations. And the first invitation is reminding ourselves that we have a sense of touch, that we have a sense of smell, that we have a sense of sight, of hearing. Feeling is not just with our fingertips, we have other touch sensors, the sense of balance and proprioception where we are, and our sense of taste. And so we do that at the beginning. And then we move on to offering invitations that direct somebody's focus so that they're completely in the present moment. In nature, in a city park, I had to do some of the training in my house because it was all smoky. I couldn't go outside. And that is how the forest bathing on the walk, it's kind of more of an immersion and out goes. Even getting myself here. Let me just make sure so you can do this pretty much anywhere. And what I'm going to invite you guys to do is we're going to do a little in-house forest bathing. It's going to take about 5 minutes. You guys up for a little just taste of what this is? Okay. So I want everybody to stand up. And we're going to close our eyes. So I'm going to suggest that you move the rolly chair just a little out of the way. And then if you feel like you can stand with your eyes closed for 3 minutes, great. Otherwise, just be near the table so that you can put your hand out. You can also ever so slightly open your eyes. So the way that we begin a forest bathing outing, venture, immersion is to remind ourselves that we have, in my opinion, the senses. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on one of them right now for just a couple of minutes in a way that I do in a forest therapy immersion. And I'm going to offer you some invitation and some wonderings, and you do with it what your body wants to do with it. And then afterwards, we can share what we noticed. I invite you to pay attention to your breath and feel the way that it comes in to your body, whether that be through your nose or your mouth. How does that feel as it comes in and as it exits? How does that feel as your chest rises, your stomach expands? Just notice the rhythm of your own breath. Imagine where in your body those oxygen molecules go, where the exchange happens and some CO2 comes out and you exhale it. And you just breathe. You can move your sense and focus on your sense of being present where you are right now. and how you're standing, balancing, being, and how you're rooted down to the ground, to the floor, to this building. And it's the wood floor, and the wood came from the trees. And so maybe, I wonder if you could imagine that perhaps you were part of those trees, and trees are rooted to the ground. And perhaps we're rooted in here with the wood floor to the ground of this place where we are here. Building. I wonder if that makes you feel more here with your footing. Invite you to just move around on your feet a little bit, no longer rooted into those wood of the floor. Perhaps you can move yourself around a little bit, around your own axis, move your feet around, you can rock, you can roll, you can. And I want you to position yourself so you're facing in the direction that feels right for you right now. In this room, maybe there's a direction that feels the best. Come around with your sense of being in a room now. I'm just going to be in that position and just take a couple more breaths. And I just want you to ever so slightly, just looking through your eyelashes, open your eyes just a little bit and just notice what you're looking at. Maybe open your eyes a little bit more, just look around the room, more detail in the room. So the question I ask after I do an invitation like that is, what did you notice? And if somebody wants to share something, they can share. They can share with silence, they can share with a poem, with dance. You notice anything? Being handy in a room that you have meetings in. I'm sure you're here frequently. Did you notice the floor is sweet? Or intentionally notice that before.
Not as much. I noticed my breath when you told us to focus on our breath, and noticed I was breathing kind of quickly, and so I intentionally slowed it down to kind of relax myself a little bit more.
All I smell is coffee. Like breathing coffee. So. And I notice sounds, like downstairs I could hear voices and, hearing like creaking on the, where people were moving around a little bit and just kind of restlessness.
So. For me, I think when you said, trying to relate to the idea of the wood, trees, I could actually feel that. I could feel thinking about well, I do woodworking, so I could feel that. Yeah, that's kind of weird. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just imagined it, I just felt myself flow. Imagine the wood on the ground, and going to the ground, just like we tried to have you visualize it, and I could actually visualize that.
Cool. Well, thanks. You guys are just awesome at participating in a room inside a building. So that's just the beginning, and it goes for much longer. I hit all the time. And then we go out and I will give an invitation that people spend 10 or 15 minutes on, and then we group back together again and do our shares, and then we have another invitation. And an invitation could be something like, pick a color that makes you happy and go follow it. Or follow the sound that draw your attention. It's really kind of cool when people come back in and share what they heard or what they saw or what color they picked. And, so anyways, that's what I do as nature and forest therapy guide. And so what I've done is, I just started my business. So I finished my certification 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. And I have been slowly but surely turning it into a little business. So I don't work as an engineer anymore, haven't for a long time. But I guide people out in parks and in nature. And I went up and guided at the YMCA camp. And Stanford has hired me to be part of their Be Well program. So I go there and yeah, that's what I do. And I love it. It's fun to share slowing down for one thing, just slowing down. And then coupling that with nature is just so nice. Yeah, it's a little taste of forest bathing. And I'm mad about the forest because my family calls me mad, and I just love being in the forest. So I'm just kind of thinking mad about the forest. But I prefer this picture. Do you guys have questions?
What's the wildest thing someone has told you when they've been out? Anything stick with you that you remember? Any
You
story?
know, I have to say, I had a young Korean woman with me. I don't know if Korean woman has anything to do with anything. She just happened to be a Korean friend of mine. And she told me that she was afraid of bugs, but she was willing to sit down and watch some ants moving around in the dirt and realize that they were like not paying any attention to her. And she said it was really interesting to see what they were doing, picking stuff up and carrying it around. And that made my heart happy. Because that's what I want. I want people to do nature in a not frightening way, right? Yeah, that was really fun. Yeah.
That second picture, is that your mom?
That's my mom. Yeah. My mom is in both of those pictures. My mom's the woman with the two little girls. Here, this is, that's me. And that's my little sister Margie, and that's my mom. And the little boy is my older son, Steven. He's 22 now, and my mom. Yeah. So she had a stroke before Steven was born, and we continued to drag her around the mountains. You can pull a wheelchair backwards through sand and mud and dirt and bushes. We discovered. Yeah.
Wow. So where did she get her love of nature?
My mom, from her mom. So her parents were Italian immigrants, and they did not have much money. And during the Depression, moved to Panama. And so she did junior high, high school, and junior college while they were there. And they were outside all the time. I think they lived in like a little hut, and my grandpa was a bricklayer. And yeah, so she just liked being outside, and her mom liked being outside. Her mom was a hoot. Oh my gosh, my grandmother, hilarious. Yeah. But my parents both liked to fish, and they liked to camp, and they just like to be outside. Yeah. You know, and I think also they recognize that having a lot of kids and being in a city environment, my dad grew up on a farm, you know, my mom grew up in Panama. They wanted their kids to experience the outdoors, you know, as much as they could. And so I let my kids play in the dirt all the time. Yeah. If they came home dirty, they were having a good day. Yeah. Oh, it's mom, our mom's over there listening to it. Yeah. Yes.
So, Isabel and I went to, Australia and New Zealand.
Ooh.
And one of the things we did was, I can't remember, Shari, the woods.
Yes.
Kauri.
Maury.
Kauri, that's not how they pronounce it. It's a different way to pronounce it. Anyway, regardless.
A cool place.
Yeah, and so we had a Maori guide guide us through the old golden forest. There's only like a couple places there that still have the woods that are species that are native to that's it. Species there, and it was the most magical thing walking through that because he he did a lot of chants, he sang and stuff like that, or just prayers within that, and it was just, I mean, it brought me to tears just walking through the forest, just experiencing that. It's amazing. So if you ever get a chance, you need to do that.
I just, we all need to do. Let's go.
Yeah, no, there's in New Zealand, and it was amazing. It's north of Auckland, the spot we went to, and we did that. It was just simply amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Australia from New Zealand is on my.
Yeah, just because of this,
you
English.
Yeah.
You would enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I was drawn to this because I just wanted to share it with everybody. And there are so many directions to go with it. Just, making people aware of nature, maybe it would make them not throw trash on it. Right? And yeah, there's the whole thing. Yeah. But I like working with kids, and I like working with adults who've never had the chance to be outside playing. I mean, man, growing up in Berkeley in the 70s was awesome. There's creeks, there's all kinds of double negative. Yeah.
Can I share one thing?
Yeah.
So Madeleine made us a tea after our forest bathing. And we didn't get a chance to talk after that because it was like the end of camp. But she made us tea, and it was out of natural things that she found in the forest. And so the ladies that we were walking back with were like, I'm gonna make my own teas from now on, and that was like their one takeaway from forest bathing. They were like, I'm gonna make my own tea and not buy any bags because they're just gonna let them steep for hours and drink them because it was so good. They're really good.
Oh my gosh. And I pinched a couple of, I actually brownied a bunch of the things that I had. So I knew it, I knew that they were of a plant. They were all of the mint family, edible. I knew I wasn't going to poison anybody. The certified in nature and wilderness first aid, and a bit of plants, edible plants. We didn't take a class in that.
So what's the significance of the tea? Is that just something you?
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. So we were like, oh, it's like tea ceremony. Oh, what are the origins of it? Well, come to find out, in Japan, people figure you're just still staying hungry at the end of your walk. So that's totally hilarious. But it's so fun. It's so fun. The best part is, it always gets set up differently. I have these cups that I bring that you guys brought back things. The last invitation involves, when I did it with these guys, was bring back something you find in nature that looks kind of neat. We'll make a little bouquet out of it. And then that goes around where our tea is. And that's actually kind of fun. Yeah, the teas are super yummy. So good. Yeah. Yeah, that was particularly good. I still don't know what it is, but I'm not growing it at my house. My sister, this is the nice thing, we have a lot of sisters. One of them is a plant pathologist.
Oh, okay.
But you left ladies making their own things.
Well,